All right, so today we are working on a 2004 Volkswagen Passat wagon. This is a Volkswagen that has the 1.8T engine. It's a pretty cool little engine. It has 5 valves per cylinder. It's a 4-cylinder, and they can make a lot of power. I think in stock form they're only 150 horsepower or something like that. This is a Passat, so the engine is mounted longitudinally. If you're working on a GTI or a Jetta or something with the same engine, it'll be transverse this way. So the complaint was from the customer that, well, the check engine light was on, it didn't run great, and it smelled funny. So I found that a couple of these hoses here, like these secondary air injection hoses, had split and broken. I replaced this one and a couple of them back here, these little small ones that come off of this vent for the valve cover. And there's a check valve down in here, right? You can't really see it. It had broken in half. So I fixed those. Check engine light stayed off. Customer drove the car for a couple weeks, came back and said he smells something like oil burning. And I've been scratching my head trying to figure out what's been going on. In fact, I probably spent a week with this car trying to figure out what he was talking about. And I finally figured it out. And it took a special tool to figure it out. I have what's called a smoke machine. It puts eucalyptus smoke into things. You can inject smoke into lines. And I thought, well, let's break this thing out and see what I can find. I didn't expect to find anything, but I did. There wasn't anything wrong visually up here, but down in there, smoke started pouring out. I don't know if you can see down in there. And I'll show you. There's a breather that comes out of the engine down below this intake manifold. It looks like this. Looks like a little pipe that maybe a St. Patrick's Day guy would smoke. You know, one of those little St. Patrick's Day, what do you call them? The green guys, I don't know. Anyhow, that's what it looks like. It's larger on one end, smaller than the other, and it's completely missing. Like down in there, gone. I don't know how the car ran as well as it did, and the check engine light was not on, but that pipe is missing, and it's really difficult to get to. I can barely even see it. This has got to come out of the way. I might have to take off the throttle body and or the intake piping just to get at it. Maybe even loosen up the intake manifold, I'm not sure. So this is the beginning of the video to see how we can fix it. If not, we got to get this pipe in there to keep the oil vapors from coming up and getting into the vents. That's what he was complaining about. We turned the defroster on, he would smell oil, and of course I couldn't smell it from the car just sitting here idling. I had to drive it, and you had to drive it for like a half hour, which was surprising. So let's get this thing apart and see if we can fix it. Put this new tube in there, and hopefully that will cure all the problems. These are pretty cool cars, but as they get old, they start to have hose problems. I think that's pretty common for any old car. All right, let's get to work. All right, so we're a little further along on our 2004 Volkswagen Passat PCV system, and I'm trying to replace what I call the St. Patrick's Day leprechaun pipe. It looks like this, and it is buried way down there. You can see that's where one end goes, and that one end is held on to, put it right there, this clip. You got to pull this big clip off the housing of the engine, the oil filter housing, and I just can't get to it. I found the old one. That's what the old one looked like. Just laying down in there, completely brittle, completely broken. This end here is snapped off, as well as that end. It's supposed to look like this, so that nipple's gone. And therein lies my problem, is I can't get my light down in there. You can kind of see how to explain this. I can get this end in probably, but I can't get this end into the rubber thing because there's a clamp still on it that's broken off. So I think the intake manifold's got to come off to get to it. There's just no way. I don't see any easy way to get in there. And of course, everything is super brittle. I may have broken more things than I'm fixing. So the oil dipstick tube shattered when I just touched it, shattered in a couple pieces, and a little vacuum tee broke. Be very careful. This engine is a really great little engine, but when it gets over 150,000 miles on it, or I guess it'd be 10 years, 15 years old, it works really hard, and it's turbocharged, and all the plastic stuff in the engine becomes very brittle. You just have to be very careful with all these things not to break them. That's why I fixed all those in the prior video that broke on their own, but any type of force, I just wiggled this. I knew how it came off. I pressed the clips and everything, and it's still shattered. So it's a bummer, but we'll get the guy fixed up. If it shattered in my hand, most likely it would shatter on the drive. So the next thing I got to do is get these 5mm intake manifold base bolts up, and I think I can just lift it up a little bit just to get access, get down in there. So let's try that. Hang tight. Okay, so probably an hour has passed since we last talked. I was able to successfully dig out all the pieces of the old leprechaun breather pipe, as I'm calling it. All these pieces going through that hole there. I tried to take the intake manifold off, but it's really difficult. There's so many other hoses and pipes that I'm afraid I'm going to break. And I was able to get the clamp off of this end. So this is the new leprechaun pipe, which is going to go down in that hole, and I will be able to clip it and clamp it, and that should be good. It's going to take me a while, so hang tight. Okay, so we got everything back together, everything's clamped, everything's plugged back in. I have to await a new dipstick tube to go down there, but I think I can start the car up once I get everything put back together. So let me get the intake screwed back on, the water bottle back on, and see how she runs. All right, so we finished buttoning up this Passat we've been working on. It's a really nice example of a 2004 Passat. It had a bunch of broken hoses that were out of sight underneath the intake manifold. First time around, I replaced a bunch of hoses that were broken here and here for the secondary air injection, and I should have thought to look for brittle broken hoses under there, but didn't. This is the pile of broken hoses we pulled out. The Leprechaun's pipe. I broke the dipstick tube, not intentionally, and a couple other clamps and tees and fittings that got broken are all replaced with new hose, new clamps, new tees, and I'm waiting for a new dipstick tube to arrive. But I think we can start it up. The dipstick is just kind of in place. Let's see how she sounds. I think it's going to be fine. Oh, it's pretty nice. Fasten the seatbelt, no warnings of any type. I think that's the best it's sounded in a long time. The ventilation tubes are all working. You can still see it in there. That was a pain. I tell you what, I spent the better part of 4 hours, my whole afternoon, fixing this one tube. Crazy how hard that was to get to. But oh well, it makes the car a good runner now. Sounds like a Swiss watch. All right, thanks for watching. Thanks for checking out my channel. And if you have one of these cars, be sure you check all the tubes and be very careful you don't break them in the process. Don't be like me. It's all fixed and running sweet now. All right, we'll catch you on the next one. Thanks for watching.